SportsXtra. I am Dave Rosengrant. Our podcast is back after a brief hiatus for personal reasons, but now we are ready to go full steam ahead through the summer and into the fall. Knock on wood. This week, I stopped at the Stinger Strong Wrestling Camp held at the Rock Rec Center in Shavertown in the Back Mountain. Over 3 days, more than 36 campers experienced learning from 4 world-class coaches, wrestlers, teachers, clinicians, whatever you want to call them, who also have local ties to NEPA. More importantly, the campers also experienced tons of fun. And when it comes to youth sports, that is what sports should be all about, is fun. For nearly the entire time that I was there, I saw kids having a great time, whether they were throwing footballs or jumping on each other, tackling each other, or just hanging out with one of the clinicians and learning something and the clinicians joking around with them. It was a great time to be there and to watch the interaction between the coaches and these kids and just how much fun everyone was having. It was great to be there. You might know the Stingers Wrestling Club, formerly as the Scorpion Wrestling Club. They recently changed their name to the Stingers Wrestling Club. And they are coached by Kevin McNulty and Carlo Mercadante. They both bring a ton of coaching experience with them and helped set this thing up. It was great for everyone to be there. And with their help, they also had the 4 world-class instructors, like I said. The clinicians were Justin Accordino, Steve Middich, Ryan Monk, and the Zain train, Zain Retherford. In addition, the coaches McNulty and Mercadante also brought a little bit of nostalgia with them, as they had the Coughlin and GAR high school mats on display and were using them for the duration of the camp. The campers not only enjoyed the world-class instruction, got world-class instruction. Like I just said, they played some football. They had some games of tug-of-war. They were treated to a Rail Riders game, a dual meet between all the campers. It was just fun for everyone. As for the clinicians, like I said, Justin Accordino, Steve Middich, Ryan Monk, and Zain Retherford, they all brought different styles and accolades with them. Justin Accordino, a Coughlin grad, instructed the first session. He is currently coaching Savage Wrestling and Chaminade High School Wrestling. In addition to that, he was a 2-time state placer for Coughlin in the PAAA and a 2-time All-American for Hofstra. A 2-time NCAA qualifier and a 1-time All-American for Hofstra. He is Coughlin's all-time wins leader with a record of 150-11. And he also won an NHSCA championship while wrestling for Coughlin after the PAAA season ended. Steve Middich brings just as many accolades as Accordino, maybe even more. I'm not sure. He's been around the entire area since early 2000s, around 2003, 2004. 4-time state qualifier for Northampton. He's coached he's coached a bunch of different places, including Wyoming area. He was the first head coach for Keystone once Keystone brought the program back. He's coached at Wyoming Seminary. He is currently coaching at Binghamton University. He is a Luzerne County Hall of Fame inductee, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2018. He just brings he brought something that almost no one else could bring, and that's traveling around and picking up so many things from many different areas that he's been around, whether it's high school or college, and that collegiate and high school expertise is almost second to none. Ryan Monk, a Dallas grad, he's the big guy. He worked out in the third session, and he also had brought a bunch of accolades with him. Ryan was a 2-time PAAA state medalist. He ended his career at Dallas with 141 career wins. He is currently wrestling for UNC Pembroke as their 285-pounder. And he also just recently wrestled in the NCAA Division II tournament for Pembroke. I got the opportunity to sit down with Ryan for an extensive conversation, which you'll be hearing next time. This episode, you will hear my interview conversation with Zain Retherford. If you followed wrestling at all over the last decade, I guess, you've heard the Zain train, Zain Retherford. You've heard that name. He was a 3-time national champion for Penn State. In those 3 years, he finished 93-0. That was after he redshirted a year for the Nittany Lions. He recently wrestled in the Olympic trials, but he was upset and knocked out of the tournament and didn't get a chance to qualify for the Olympics. He's also currently wrestling for the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, which is a club that is packed with names from Kyle Snyder, Bo Nichols, Zain Retherford, the list goes on and on and on. So he got a chance to come in for the 4th session of the Stingers Strong Wrestling Camp. And what he brought with him was all those accolades, the national championships, something that none of the other clinicians could bring. A 3-time national champion at Division I for Penn State, that's almost unheard of. The Zain train, as he's called, in my conversation with him, he touched on a wide array of topics, from his nickname to what it's like at the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, and also being a clinician. And he also stressed fun, not only for youngsters and getting youngsters started having fun in the sport of wrestling or any sport, but having fun even currently as he's with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. Fun is always stressed when it comes to sports, and it should be. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Zain Retherford.
College? You ready? Yep.
Oh, yeah, go.
Yeah.
So, Zain Retherford, you've been up to a lot lately. What are you up to right now?
Yeah, I've been doing some wrestling camps like I'm doing today. I've been teaching youth and high school level wrestlers some technique. Been mostly training in State College still. I train with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club and some of the Penn State wrestlers. And I'm getting ready for the World Championships this year in October. So it's the next thing.
What's it like being a part of the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club with all the big names there and everything? It's got to be pretty competitive.
Yeah, you're against world level athletes every day, and so pretty fortunate to be able to pick their brains and compete against those guys. And it just kind of we help each other out and kind of up the level in the room. So it's great to be a part of.
It's got to be fun being there too with everyone, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We play dodgeball, we play games, and the wrestling part of it is the most fun. So pretty lucky to be with that group.
You said fun. That's starting from a young age. Wrestling has to be fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously stuff that's not fun about wrestling. You know, the cutting weight and being disciplined isn't always fun, but it pays off, and winning is fun. I'd say, you know, I hate losing, hate that feeling, and you know, it's a lot of fun when you set some goals and you know you're able to finally reach those goals after some hard work. So,
is it all about?
Nice shirt.
Hey, yeah. How are you?
Doing well.
Hey, what's going on, bud?
It's got to be all about getting the kids fun, keeping the kids, you know, active, and
Sure.
keeping it fun for them at a camp like this, right?
Yeah, you know, depends on the age level. Sometimes it's the younger guys that actually pay better attention and have better energy than some of the older guys. You know, sometimes they think they know it all when they get older, but I don't know. I think you got to make the kids engaged, find a way to relate to them, and you got to make it fun for them. Also, I feel like it's my job to make sure that the technique that they're learning is worthwhile, or anything that they're learning is worthwhile, and that they can actually, you know, take it and apply it into their wrestling if they choose to. So that's my job. Make it fun, but make it meaningful, and hopefully they get something out of it. Positive.
Can you talk a little bit about the Zain train and how that, obviously the train rhymes with Zain, but how did that come about?
Yeah, going into my senior year of high school, I was fortunate I made the cadet world team at my age group, and my parents, I think it was my dad actually, came up with the idea. My dad was a engineer on the railroad, so he drove trains, and so we made some T-shirts to raise a fundraiser to get me overseas to compete in the World Championships, and the shirt said, "All aboard the Zain train." To Azerbaijan was where I wrestled. So yeah, I think my mom and dad kind of, and then it stuck. I guess it just rhymed and people liked it, so kind of carried forward.
Did you think back then that it would still be strong, you know, this many years later?
No, I mean, I didn't even call myself that or anything like that. It just kind of, people kept calling me that, so then when it was cool to make an Instagram or Twitter handle, then I just went with that for that, and you know, after college, kind of just stuck with me.
In the end of 2019, you had a match down at Wilkes.
Yes.
And you qualified for Worlds then.
Yep.
After that, you got to qualify for the Olympics, and you kind of fell short a little bit there.
Yes.
You have that drive now after losing that. Does that give you the drive now?
Yeah, I definitely have the drive. I think that, you know, the Olympics is a goal that you set when you're a young kid, and to fall short isn't fun. And I took a few weeks, maybe like a month, to just get back in the room, you know, start enjoying, just focus on the basics, enjoying. There's really nothing to compete for this summer now. The only thing that's going forward is the Olympic Games, but I'm looking for the next thing. And I still love competing, and you know, I'm going to compete another Olympic cycle, so looking forward to that. And the next thing on my radar is, like I said, the World Championships, and those are in October this year in Norway.
Does it soften the blow a little bit that you lost to a fellow Penn Stater in that tournament?
No, not at all. And that match, the blow that hurts the most is losing in the semifinals. You know, when you know the spot still matters. You know, the only person that goes to represent the United States is the number one guy, and Nick Lee, the guy I lost to in the wrestlebacks, is a teammate of mine. Great kid, you know, really humble, and I've just been fortunate enough to wrestle with him every day. So, no, that blow doesn't really sting any differently. I think the blow that stings the most is just coming up short and not being the Olympian this year. So,
will you watch the Olympics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm training in State College with the Nightline Wrestling Club athletes, and those guys have been in there training for Thomas Gilman, David Taylor, Kyle Snyder. We have a few guys. I'm sure I'm missing some. But, yeah, we have some foreign athletes also from Puerto Rico and Uzbekistan that train. So, no, I'm going to watch. I'm going to support those guys, and looking forward to watching them win gold.
You just name-dropped a lot of popular names there. When you hear all those names that you just dropped and you think, like, you're in the room with all those guys, what? How does it make you feel? Like humble? Is it like an overwhelming feeling, or are you just like just another day?
I try not to think of it as another day, just because that. It's not great. It's not great, but I look at it as like I'm very fortunate, and I'm grateful to be where I'm at, be able to train around some of the best guys in the world, and that just elevates my wrestling also. So very fortunate, and just try to keep centered in gratitude for that.
Is the atmosphere the same in the wrestling club?
I hear that. Yeah. Outcome
Is the atmosphere the same with the wrestling club as it is with collegiately under KL?
Yes, it's the same atmosphere. It's a competitive approach, but we're focused on having fun and enjoying it and enjoying the process and just competing hard. So, yes, it's the same exact philosophy.
All right, the kids are calling your name,
yes.
So go in there. Thanks a lot, Zain.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Again, thanks to Zain Retherford there. One of the unique things of having a sports interview for a podcast or a live show via phone or Zoom or any other way is that you get to experience the liveness of the atmosphere. So, like right there, you heard the kids chanting "Zain, Zain, Zain." So that's really cool. I absolutely love that, and I think it's a unique part of this podcast that we can do something like that. And being sports and getting out to events and getting audio for a podcast at live events is just wonderful because you get that whole atmosphere. Also heard in that interview with Zain was a cameo from Anthony Mercadante and his newborn, or sorry, not newborn, but his baby son Santino. As we were chatting, Anthony walked through and said hello to everyone. So again, that is the unique part of this podcast, and pretty much any sports podcast, I would think, or sports interview, because even if you're doing a podcast via Zoom, which we have done, there are still challenges when it comes to an internet connection or something like that. But it makes you feel like it is reality. And that's what sports is. Sports is reality. And I love that because it's nothing that is staged. It's all reality. A couple other items that I'd like to touch on this week. The Legion baseball playoffs, Wyoming Valley American Legion League baseball playoffs are in full swing, as is the Little League postseason. We hope to be touching on Legion and or Little League in the coming weeks. When it comes to the Legion playoffs, the league playoffs will end probably by the time you listen to this podcast. But the Region 5 tournament will be held July 16th to 20th in Bloomsburg. And 3 Wyoming Valley teams will be in that tournament. When we last saw the Legion postseason, Swearsville won its 3rd state title in 6 years in 2019. So, yes, this is the first time that the Legion playoffs are being held in 2 years, the Legion postseason. Just when you think that nothing has been on hiatus anymore, you find something that has been on hiatus again. But it's nice to see that the Legion playoffs are back and in full swing. Again, Swearsville, when we last saw Legion postseason, Swearsville won its 3rd state title in 6 years. Can Swearsville repeat? Can another Wyoming Valley team possibly make it through and win a state championship? We'll find out soon. So the Region 5 tournament is July 16th to 20th. And from there, the state tournament is July 24th to 28th at Ephrata. One more little piece of news. The Misericordia football team has hired a new coach, and it's John Davis. Davis spent the last 3 seasons as head coach at the Apprentice School in Newport News, Virginia. He led the team to consecutive winning seasons in 2018 and 2019. Coincidentally, Misericordia did the same in those years. The Apprentice School was mostly an independent program, so this is pretty much a step up for John Davis moving to Misericordia. Misericordia needed a new coach because Mark Ross resigned back in May after he led his team, the Cougars, to postseason appearances in the MAC Centennial Bowl in 2018 and 2019. 2018 was the only winning season in school history for Misericordia. In 2019, the team had 5 wins. Ross was the first coach in program history for Misericordia, being named the coach. The first season was 2011. And in his last 2 years, he piled up a 13-8 record. Shortly after Ross resigned back in May, he joined his former defensive coordinator at Misericordia, Frank Sheptock, at Bloomsburg. Sheptock is now the head coach at Bloom, and he calls Ross and asks him to be defensive coordinator at Bloomsburg, and that is where Coach Mark Ross has ended up. Our hope is to get a little more in-depth coverage with the Misericordia football coach and John Davis in his first season, getting a late start here to the season on the job. And we hope to get a little more in-depth with the Legion baseball as well in the coming weeks. And next week, as stated earlier in the podcast, earlier in the show, our next episode will feature an in-depth conversation with Ryan Monk, who played football for Penn State, has wrestled for decades, I guess you can say, and is still wrestling. So Ryan Monk will join us next week, and again, we are going full steam ahead through the summer, straight into the fall, hopefully no breaks, and that'll do it for this week's episode of NEPA SportzXtra. That'll do it for this week's episode of NEPA SportzXtra. As always, give us a follow on Twitter and Facebook with our handle at NEPA SportzXtra. That is NEPA SportzXtra. And if you have a business you would like to get the word out about, or you would just like to contact us via email at nepasportsextra@gmail.com. And until next time, I am Dave Rosengrant, saying keep some extra time in your life for some sports in NEPA.